And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. We have curtailed our ultra-early Sunday editions, and we're doing it more at a normal time on Sundays now. Start things out looking at the sun here in 193 angstroms. Let me zoom out a little bit there. Large coronal hole north of the south of the North Pole, rather, as well as a couple of them on the equator. And the South Pole coronal hole looking large and in charge, and indeed it is in charge, of the polarity of the current sheet. At least the part of it that Earth is currently in. And when I say current, the pun is intentional. Here's a 304 angstrom view. We see that sunspot in the southwest setting. Not sure if that one ever got named, and I don't really care because there's too much stuff to cover. Let's take a close-up view of the western limb. And there you see the setting mode of that sunspot. And here's a close-up of the filaments in the northwest. And we created this on helioviewer.org. As you can see, that large filament still suspended up there. So some solar activity kicking off here, despite no sunspots. We're going to have a zero sunspot day most likely today, as we don't see a lot of field organization, and here we are at HelioViewer to show you the fields. And again, not a lot of organization happening there. There's the fade from 171 angstroms. And one thing we do see is a little more rising activity here in the northeast. You can see a little bright spot right there. So that's something to keep an eye on throughout the day. Speaking of ions, did you know that X-rays cause ions to exist? They knock electrons off of atoms. Anyway, there goes electron flux. And it's not completely flatlined there, except at the more high energy states, and 10.7 centimeter radial flux at 72 solar flux units. KP index is at 1. And let's move on to the real-time solar wind. And today we've put up a 3-day to show you the onset and ramp down of the solar wind stream that we saw. Current phi angle at 341 degrees. Current solar wind density 3.98 protons per cubic centimeter. And the solar wind has ramped down to 433 kilometers a second. There's the data from ACE, and that is the 1-day. So there's the 3-day, and there's the 1-day. Next, we'll look at the geospace magnetosphere movie, and we see a big magnetohydrodynamic pressure spike here. That appears to be a purely magnetic event there, folks, not associated with any big uptick in the solar wind. There you see that coming in around 8:40 universal time. There we've reshown that reverberation and that spike. And actually, let's take a look at the density . And here's the density. This is also 4 hours of data here. And we see some low pressure, and then we see some high density. Low density, then high density, rather, around that time. And that appears to be a magnetic component, not a solar wind component. I'll play that through one more time. Sudden magnetic density spike there, not represented in solar wind data. Next, we're going to look at the geospace ground magnetic perturbations. And there's 4 hours of data a little closer to home. And we do see an induced ground magnetic spike there around the same time. It is a geomagnetic jerk. Please leave a comment if you think I'm a geomagnetic jerk. Whether you're a friend or a foe, we invite you to watch the videos anyway. Next, we're going to look at the total electron content forecast. As we said yesterday, my electrons finally arrived, and we're not going to get into the mechanisms behind that in this video. However, this will give you some ideas as to your GPS errors. It looks like it's calming down a little bit. And I'll let that play through a second time before we move on to more raw data. So there's your relativistic electrons, and they're back at more at moderate to high levels there. And you can see the GOES electron flux made it into the alert threshold, and it's probably going to head back up there today. In fact, it's doing it as we make the video. And there's the consolidated data greater than or equal to 2, as well as greater than or equal to 0.8 mega electron volts on the GOES 14 and 15. And if you're wondering where this is measured, folks, it's measured right at the F ionosphere layer. So they endeavor to measure these electrons at the F2 layer when there is an F2 layer. And let's move on to the ionosphere movie. Here's 6 hours of data of the ionosphere. And it's looking a little more normal than it has actually. It's smoothing out a little bit. And there's the latest image at 10:30 UT. GOES magnetometers are still looking wild and spiky, as we've been forecasting for days. And next, let's look at the Gong 2 top view ecliptic plane field plot. Now keep in mind this data is 1 hour and 20 minutes old, and the magnetic environment can change with no warning. And we're going to see continued spikiness in the GOES magnetometers. And we're going to see some low readings coming up in the next 24 hours. And without explaining how it all works, I'll just warn people that the magnetic environment can change with absolutely no warning. And this is part of the reason why we make the videos. Now, we've seen an uptick in seismicity over the past 24. Some 6 magnitude quakes, some deep quake events, New Madrid quakes. Actually, that's Oklahoma. There's one in Kansas also. Let's just go up the list here, as there's lots of seismic activity kicking off now. Some deep quakes. So, first of all, yesterday at 14:32 UT, we saw a 6.1 magnitude quake near the South Sandwich Islands, as well as a series of aftershocks apparently piling up there. And you can see it on the map. By the way, we did see one off the coast of Oregon too. We're trying to only cover quakes over a 6 magnitude and deep quakes here, so I'm just going to scroll up the list. There's a 5.2 north of New Zealand in the ocean rift zone, near the deep earthquake capital of the world, which is around Fiji and Tonga, north of New Zealand. Here's a deep one in Indonesia. I would say heads up Western South America. We've seen deep quake after deep quake there. If I were in Western South America, I would certainly have an earthquake plan. Oh, the largest quake of the past 24 was a 6.2 at Papua New Guinea. Let's check the location. And there's the location of that 6.2 magnitude quake in the Solomon Sea. That one coming in at 6:04 UT today on February 9th. And as we did the show prep, a 5.4 struck in the same area, but this time at 564 kilometers depth, So if you live in an earthquake-prone zone, folks, I would have an earthquake plan, as we're still seeing really a drought of major earthquakes of a 7+ magnitude. Let's move on to windy.com's pressure maps. And we'll let that advance 24 hours until about 12 noon Universal Time tomorrow. So we see extreme anomalies in the northern jet streams. Without getting too in-depth into it in this video, as this is the daily space weather, we're just going to pause this actually at 1300 Zulu tomorrow. Double anticyclone over the North Atlantic Ocean there, as well as a powerful anticyclone off of the coast of Oregon. We did actually see a large, fairly decent-sized quake there, and I almost forgot to cover it. It's a 4.7 off the coast of Oregon. Thanks for the reminder, windy.com. By the way, they have a great mobile app also. There is the location of that significant quake off the coast of Oregon. Next, we've got volcanoes. Kluchevskoy erupting, producing a 20,000-foot ash plume there. Mount Aso, possible activity. Don't build a campsite in Mount Aso. Kuchina-Rabu-jima, flight level 4,000 there. Sakurajima, flight level 10,000 there. Explosive activity at Tokono produces a 7,000-foot plume. Popocatépetl has dispersed. It's ash. Fuego exploding, 15,000-foot plume there. Sangay exploding, flight level 21,000 there. Revenador exploding, 16,000-foot ash plume there. And while we're unable to detect whether or not Sabancaya is erupting, probably because of clouds on the satellite image, please do not attempt to do the triple Lindy over the Sabancaya caldera. Let's talk about some human health stories real quick. Intermittent fasting, and thanks Terrence for the great chart here. We know our viewers love data. So there's the benefits of fasting, and this is all on smAshomash.com/forum. And we've actually updated this one to include 2 lengthy articles about the benefits of caloric restriction, as well as autophagy, a long science article about autophagy. So read up on that. The benefits are absolutely amazing. They're not only just hormonal benefits and weight loss and metabolism, also the generation of more human growth hormone and anti-cancer benefits. If you're not familiar with intermittent fasting and autophagy, check out the section on smAshomash.com/forum. It's part of the free-for-all section. And we encourage all of our users to post whatever you want. We won't censor you. Please don't make a fool of yourself because, again, we won't censor you. Let's talk about coronavirus real quick. We've got a very, very large repository of information there also, all available in one convenient link. And we've updated it once again today with a screenshot at 3:32 a.m., yes. Anyway, the deaths from the coronavirus surpass deaths from SARS. Let's just talk about the relative danger of coronavirus. And while this has not been updated, I would note that the H1N1 virus has a fatality rate of 52.8. Now, we're still working on the fatality rate for novel coronavirus, but just notice how much deadlier Ebola is. And by the way, if you weren't aware, H1N1 killed 284,500 people worldwide with a fatality rate of 17.4%. So again, check out smAshomash.com/forum if you haven't yet. Set yourself a login, leave us a post. Any stories you'd like to do, you can contact us that way, or you can even send an email at smashomash@gmail.com. We see the Chinese reported cases leveling out here as it approaches 40,000. And we've got a third line here on the Johns Hopkins graph for total recovered. So that green line is what we want to see, as well as the yellow line, which is the other locations besides China confirmed cases, remaining flat. So current level of deaths is at I mean, total cases is at 37,590, total deaths 814. Let's move on to weather stuff. Do you know whether or not lightning's striking? Well, things are pretty calm right now. Not a lot of lightning bolts. And here's a value-added service for you. It's the U.S. Doppler radar map. Some heavy snow striking southern Minnesota, as well as northern Iowa. Shout out to Aubrey et al., Iowan viewers. An ice storm is striking western Illinois. And it could be snowing outside now. I'll be running outside right after I make this video to see whether or not it is, as I love snow, cold, and all kinds of weather extremes. Next, we've got the U.S. water vapor map, as we do daily. We see some pretty anomalous chunks of dry air there. That one over the Bay Area. We're going to zoom in on that real quick. And there's that zone. And I have nothing to say other than, have you had your protons today? Here's your Europe and Africa water vapor map. And it looks like some Sahara dust is starting to swirl around there off of the west coast of Africa. And I heard there's some heavy storms hitting the UK. Anyway, there's that data. Let's move on to nullschool.net. And there you see those two anticyclones over the North Atlantic, as well as 180-degree bends, and in fact a 360-degree bend in the jet stream right here over the North Atlantic. Anyway, there's the Western world. Check out South America. Very odd jet stream behavior down there, to say the least. Here's the Eastern world. And we're about ready to close this thing out. So please don't forget to press like and subscribe on YouTube. We've almost reached 1,500 subscribers. OMG, WTF, Geezo Whiz. We've got hundreds and hundreds of space weather videos, as well as various videos about cosmology and all sorts of other things. So check us out. Also check us out on alt tech, such as minds.com. We're also on BitChute. Did you watch our BitChute exclusive from yesterday? Entitled Dumpster Fire / Trainwreck, the DNC, Pete versus Bernie, Shadow Inc., and Tyranny. Yeah, we talk about tyranny on the regs, as the government is currently trying to crack down on me. So consider becoming a patron and increasing the probability that these videos will continue to exist. Patrons are our main source of funding. So thanks to our assistant producers, as well as our associate producers at the gold tier level. Thanks very much. Consider becoming a patron if you enjoy the content. And there are some benefits for our patrons, such as early notice on all sorts of things. Thanks, smAsh team. That's everybody that tunes in, leaves a comment, shares on their social media, and all that sort of stuff, etc. Stay tuned for 2 bonus features. And a quick aside, I did not forget about talking with Eugene. Eugene Bagashov and I spoke yesterday at length, and we'll be doing a video today, as we talked about unified theory too much yesterday. And what we're talking about is the theory of everything, folks. So look for a special presentation coming today. I'm going to look at the sun real quick, and there you can see there are no super organized fields going on. Let me just zoom out a little bit. You can see that setting sunspot region. Not sure if that was ever named or not. Leave a comment if you've figured it out. A couple little organized areas up there in the north. Practically nothing in the south. And we've got one more bonus. And it's my personal favorite, the 171 angstroms view, looking at ionized iron. So watch that bright spot in the northeast, folks. Stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive, and since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back, and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins.